Man, it feels like it's been 20 years since I talked about Power Instinct. It hasn't, of course. It's been roughly 8 months since the video went public, and maybe a year and some change since I recorded it, but what I've done is a very clever joke about the time skip between the last game and this one. 2 decades after Goketsuji Legends, we pick up with that stellar cast of characters we know and love. Oh wait, hang on. The only returning characters from the previous 3 titles are Ume and Tane, and now they're tied together. This is otherwise a completely new roster of fighters. Even the terms of the tournament have shifted a bit, but we'll get into that momentarily. I prefer to independently verify information whenever I can. Do my own research, or at least double check it against sources like manuals or in-game information where possible. That really isn't an option with the Goketsuji series. The franchise just wasn't as hot in the West, and today's title in particular didn't even get a release outside of Japan. I don't speak Japanese, so all this information is being sourced from a fan wikia, and I am once again at the mercy of their integrity. I also wasn't able to play this one. Apparently, it's notoriously tough to emulate with my setup. I'm not actually super stressed about it. I had hands-on time with the preceding 3 games in the series, and it sounds like it plays mostly the same as Legends. I just wanted to let you guys know we're flying more blind than usual here. It is what it is. If I'm wrong about something, let me know in the comments, preferably with sources, and we can do a big Goketsuji corrections episode in the future if need be. For now, let's talk about Groove on Fight. I'm Eric J. Chucky, and welcome to Violent Profiles, where we discuss obscure fighting games and the rosters that define them. If you could tag in for the like button and land an unblockable attack on that subscribe, I'd consider it a personal favor and name you the heir of my martial arts empire. Groove on Fight was the last game in the series fully developed by publisher Atlus and came out for arcades and Sega Saturn in 1997. It was met with lackluster reviews and criticized for not innovating much on Goketsuji Legends, which is a weird complaint we tossed around in the 90s. Sometimes you just want more of a game you love. Each new iteration doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, just do better than your average yearly sports title. The complaint is also a little ridiculous on its face, because the game added 2 new buttons in the powerful blow and dash attack, as well as a healthy refresh on some of the game's mechanics, including yeeting a defeated opponent's corpse at their partner, and, oh right, the completely new roster, darker tone, and overhauled graphics. I can't say I like these sprites as much. They're simpler in a lot of ways, and don't really convey as much charm as the bigger ones. They look a bit cleaner, and I kinda like the outlines, but I preferred the details from previous games. Our story opens in the distant future of 2015, where Ume and Tane have collaborated not just with one another, but an outsider named Falco to defend their place at the top of the Goketsuji family and its fortunes. It would be hypocritical if an outsider were allowed to help the sisters secure their holdings but not compete, of course, so the tournament was opened up for the first time to people who are not related to the clan. Should they be successful? Crap. The endings are in Japanese. I mean, that makes sense. The game was never released outside of Japan, but I don't know, there's so much English everywhere, I thought that maybe... There's also, for some reason, no endings detailed on the wikia. No, you know what? That's officially too much adversity for one episode. I downloaded the Google Lens app, hashtag not an ad, and between it and context clues, I was able to translate the endings, sort of. So, if the sisters win, they're treated with the respect they deserve as joint heads of the family because of their age, but on a personal level bicker over energy pills that help them maintain their younger forms? I can see why the Wikia didn't bother mentioning these. I'm also glad to discover the series' signature sense of humor is at least partially intact. Ume and Tane have a lot of similar moves to their individual selves from previous games. They summon giant screaming effigies of their heads, turn youthful for some more acrobatic attacks, spit their false teeth at you, and now they can summon a giant statue of their mom from the sky to fall on an opponent, or previous roster members in a crowd to trample them. Overall, though, the game doesn't really take advantage of the creative space offered by the pair being strapped together in a way I'd hoped. Why do a thing if you're not really gonna do the thing, you know? Now, each fighter has a canon partner that you absolutely don't have to pay attention to during character select, but it gives me something to structure this video around, and their stories are often connected, so let's talk about Falco. He's got a pretty fun Bartitsu-like style with a fighting cane, and he throws playing cards and other gambling errata at his enemies, which tracks because he himself is a master gambler. Falco met Ume at one of Tane's casinos when he housed her in a game of poker. Enraged, Ume attacked Falco, but he was able to dodge all of her offense because apparently he can read his opponent's mind. That's either a severe way to bury the lead or it's intended to be metaphorical. Falco's a cordial fellow who considers himself a master at any game of chance where his demeanor shifts to become a brutally serious competitor. The sisters paid Falco off to help them out, and after successfully aiding them in winning the tournament, he takes the money and bets it against an old rival, the man whom he wagered his eye against and lost 30 years ago. Falco wants revenge. He wants his opponent's eye, but he intends to win it legitimately with his Goketsuji prize money on the line. Let's hop over from the main characters of the franchise to the mascot of this game, Solus R8000, a young policewoman from the year 2115 who was charged with investigating a powerful organization that was said to have been involved in the disappearances of major families and financial groups, including the Goketsuji clan. A Goketsuji descendant herself, Solus travels to the past to protect her family, arriving at the laboratory of a passionate scientist who would become her partner in the tournament when the sisters refused to speak to Solus about their impending doom unless she won. Upon her victory, it's discovered the spatio-temporal culprit was the final boss of the game. Who could have thought? She does seem a bit nervous at how she might have rewritten history, however. Solus fights somewhat reminiscent of a non-roller skating Super Kurata from Legends, using long legs, guns, and energy projections to defeat her foes. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't comment on how apparently the future cops of 2115 have mandatory exposed underboob and booty shorts. So bouncy. You might think that's what enticed her partner to team up with her, but it was actually the opportunity to study her crashed time machine and its advanced technology that drew him in. Max Axe Dax, or MAD for short, is regarded as a brilliant and mysterious man whose love for science trumps all other pursuits. He used to work for the Gartheimer family, but I guess he doesn't now. When Solus was told she had to enter the tournament, she asked MAD for his assistance, and he agreed for the opportunity to get a hold of some experimental subjects and test out his gadgets. Listen, there's a lot going on with this fella. He looks like a cracked out Kid Omega wearing David Byrne's big-ass coat. Sometimes he sports a giant tie with his initials on it, which, in case you haven't put together, is a play on the fact that he's a mad scientist.
Hardy har har. Get it?
Like his name, Max Axe Dax's overall vibe is terrible, but I kinda like it. He's got a big wrench, a ray gun, a drill, a net, and an air horn. Despite being a regular-sized human, he dangles like a kid on monkey bars from the robotic arms of his coat. All kinds of fun, science-y nonsense. Lead him to victory, and he very excitedly begins work on a battle android to capture specimens, which, if I'm reading the subtext right, ends up being Solus R8000 herself. That doesn't make a lick of sense. Solus is mentioned as being the descendant of the Goketsuji. How can this be true if she's a robot built by MAD? And furthermore, yeah, whatever, it's a cool reveal, I guess. Next up, we have a witch with a passion for music who... Hey, get out of here. You're too popular for this show. The daughter of a famous musician and a prestigious fashion designer, Remy Otogiri is secretly the descendant of an evil witch, and by secret, I mean she dresses like a witch, uses magic, and is protected by a demonic music note named Kuroma. She's also distantly related to the Goketsuji family, which means she fulfills one of my favorite details about the series, even though it's no longer a requirement. Remy and her partner Popora met in school, and when Popora's mother told them about her participation in the tournament years ago, it piqued the interest of the young magical girl, though the non-violent Remy needed a bit more persuasion with the promise of using the family's power and influence to put on concerts all across the world for the benefit of disadvantaged peoples. Kuroma does most of the fighting for Remy, shapeshifting into swords, music staves, organs that shoot out the Grim Reaper, and all kinds of fun nonsense. Should she achieve victory, her concert tour begins in the largest hall available, spreading love, joy, and happiness to those who need it most. Her partner, Popora Hanano-Koji, is the daughter of Kurara Hanano-Koji from the previous games, who has inherited her mother's magical girl abilities. Her dream is to meet her father, who has been traveling the world since she was a baby. Indeed, her most treasured possession is a teddy bear he gave her when he last left. Popora fights very similar to her mother, albeit with more outfit changes to express the theming of her various attacks. Popora's ending is underwhelming. She just hangs out with her teddy bear and appreciates her happy family, I think. Maybe it's a new bear her dad brought her and they just don't show him. I don't know, man. Google Lens isn't perfect. Translation ain't localization. There's a reason I trust the Wikia instead of using the same trick on the manuals or whatever. Speaking of Guilty Gear, Chris Wayne looks like he'd be perfectly at home on their roster. Another descendant of previous fighters Keith Wayne and Annie Hamilton. Good for those crazy kids. Chris inherited his father's violent tendencies, and unlike Keith, has no special fondness for his parents. This drives him to leave town and help his pal Larry on a series of archaeological investigations that quickly turns into both of them joining the Goketsuji tournament. They are, after all, both related to the clan. Chris fights like if Terry Bogard were a cowboy, throwing around lightning and line dance kicking people with his thumbs in his belt loops. Should he win the tournament, Chris claims his parents seized the earnings, but he's cool with it, cause money and power only mean responsibilities, and he'd rather spend time smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, and being cool. Chris's pal Larry Light, comparatively, seems to harness the power of the freaking sun.
In the palm of my hand.
Why is this guy an archaeologist when he can do this kind of nonsense? We're driven by our hearts more than our predispositions, I suppose. Larry is being threatened by a powerful New York gang who didn't know he could control the sun before Chris Wayne intervened to save his life. Or theirs. He returned the favor by keeping Chris from being arrested on a vandalism charge, and the two have been pals ever since. Larry had actually participated in the previous tournament at the age of 19, losing in the finals to Ume. It was she who invited him to this year's tourney, pulling him away from exploring an ancient ruin. If he and Chris are successful, and since he can wield the power of the sun, why wouldn't they be, he accepts his role at the head of the Goketsuji clan and spends a moment of philosophical introspection atop his motorcycle. Hizumi Yukino is our next fighter, a young otaku particularly obsessed with ninjas. During a summer festival, he met the master of ceremonies, Sujiroku Tenjinbashi, both a member of the Yakuza and Goketsuji family. The two of them bonded over their love of Japanese history and decided to enter the tournament together. It is literally that simple. Hizumi fights like, a ninja, whereas Tenjin Bashi uses ceremonial drumsticks to summon forth elemental power and unleash the spirits within his lion mask. Both endings are equally as indulgent in their passions, with Hizumi doubling down on running the Goketsuji like a ninja clan, I think, and Tenjin Bashi using the money and prestige to hold ever grander festivals. Alright, the final 4-ish fighters are what the game considers bosses, not available at the start. The first is Rudolph Girmer. Gartheimer? A former illustrious member of the Goketsuji family who was exiled by Ume in disgrace, causing him to lose everything. Rudolph and his family built it all back up from the ashes, still harboring deep resentment for Ume and anyone connected to her. Taking advantage of the new rules allowing non-family members to compete, Rudolph looks to seize control and turn the twins against one another once more. Now, I've said all that, and I'm sure all you can focus on is the fact that the footage I'm talking over is showing some big fancy fellow in a fetish mask swinging around his giant balls. Is this what he was disgraced for? I'm not kink-shaming or anything, it just makes sense. Should he attain victory, he's attacked by Reiko Oyama, ninja kicking in through the window in what appears to be a high-rise, thanking Rudolph for getting rid of the old women who were taking up space in his house. Rudolph's canon partner is his servant Damien Shade, an orphan taken in by the Gartheimer family. Damien is a pacifist who dislikes violence, but becomes enraged if someone tries to harm his master. In arcade mode, he kinda just hangs out in the background while you fight Rudolph, presumably using his unique healing power to preserve the man who means so much to him. When he does jump into the fray, he seems to be having, chest pains? Is this guy alright? I don't know if he should be fighting. Should he somehow win the game? Let's assume that this is 17-year-old Damien's fantasy and not what actually happens. Unless that's why the Gartheimer family was disgraced. Ew. Moving swiftly along to our final entry, Bristol Weller, the employer of the previous pair and the final boss of the game. This Albert Wesker lookalike was born to a prominent family, pouring his efforts into achieving social status and giving to charity to hide a darker truth about himself. He has made a pact with demons. In exchange for supernatural power, he's agreed to sow destruction on the Earth. In his final demonic form, Bristol D, Weller summons monstrosities from the Shin Megami Tensei series to batter any who would challenge him, and as a fun crossover. It is he who Solus was sent back to find and stop, because if she doesn't, he'll become an incredible power in both the business world as head of the Goketsuji clan, and in the supernatural world as a demon summoner unleashing monstrosities to call and devour the weak. And, that's it. On one hand, even with my distance perspective, I can see why it's not the most celebrated entry in the series. The change in graphics, the lack of characters previously established in the franchise. On the other, it's got some neat new mechanics. It doesn't look bad, and it gives us something to build on, right? These are very interesting personalities that could have compelling stories in future entries. Oh wait, this is chronologically the final game in the series, so they never appear in the franchise again. What are you gonna do? Personally, I'm not sure the tone was consistent enough to accomplish either thing it was going for. Power Instinct is silly, and that's okay. It's something I love about the franchise, and part of what makes it stand out. There were some very edgy concepts, and the muted color palette and apocalyptic backgrounds are evocative of a more desperate time in the Goketsuji world. But these two styles are at odds with one another, and trying to combine them makes the game's identity suffer. This isn't the last time we'll visit the world of Power Instinct, but if I don't space these episodes out, I get bored. So next time on Violent Profiles, we'll be covering an unexpected romance. What could that mean? Until then, why not go get Suji over to the Patreon and subscribe at the $5 tier to join the elite ranks of the names on screen, and get episodes of this show a month early. There's one waiting for you right now. Until then, white out.